Hi, everyone. Welcome to Make America Healthy, the podcast where we educate you, inspire you, and empower you to take better control of your own physical and mental health. We'd like to thank you for listening. My name is Beth Shaw. I'm the host of this podcast, the founder of Yoga Fit Training Systems, the world's largest yoga mind-body school, the author of 4 best-selling books on health, yoga, and wellness. And today's topic is a favorite one of mine, and it is on longevity, epigenetics, and health span. And we are joined by a very special guest, Dr.
Nathalie.
She has written an amazing book that I have to say, I picked it up. I love it. We're probably going to use it for curriculum at our longevity program at Yoga Fit. And it is called SmartCuts, How to Hack Your Health and Biohack Your Healthspan. She is a doctor. She hosts several television shows. Dr. Beauchamp is really integrating biohacking tools and strategies for health. And she's going to teach us today how we can hopefully live longer, live better, look better, because we're all concerned about that, and enjoy the ride. Welcome to the show, Dr. Beauchamp.
I'm so excited to be here. I always love it's your favorite topic. It's mine too. And I always like to learn from other people and integrate new hacks because we're all about getting better every day with our routine. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks. I love the book. I picked it up. I immediately went to the sleep chapter and have implemented taping my mouth shut now for the past week because I started doing that a while ago and then I fell off and I read your book and I was like, I have to do this. Tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into longevity, and why you wrote the book.
Oh my goodness. So this is actually my 6th book, and one of my prior book, I guess 2008, it was called Hack Your Health Habits. And I focused a lot on the stuff that is in this current book, but focused a lot too on habit because as you pointed out, you used to tape your mouth and then you got out of the habit. So regardless of the title here, I've been on a journey for myself. I've been in practice for 27 years. I'm still in practice. I'm still problem solving all day long with my patients. Further my education with the Institute of Functional Medicine. And as I was learning throughout the years, I'm like, okay, what do people need to know? And let's face it, not too many people have time to go for a 2.5-hour walk and listen to the Huberman podcast or Peter Attia. The information, I'm great people, but I'm dealing with patients all day and it needed to be simplified. It needed to be put together. And that's why the current book, SmartCuts, is all about protocol. We didn't want to go too big about the why and the physiology, which everybody can almost look at it online now. But what is the most efficient? Because we're all busy. If you can do something and get the maximum gain in a shorter amount of time, I think it's important. And I'm a biohacker at heart. I love trying new things. I'm always experimenting. And when I say this is I'm probably like you, Beth, doing the work, meaning sleeping, exercising, and good food. This has to be the pillar. These have to be the pillars. And then everything else that we can do to be more efficient. I also have a background in natural bodybuilding. So I competed in natural bodybuilding.
I can tell we have that in common, yes.
From 30 to 35. And it was quite an experience because funny enough, I was anorexic growing up. So from 14 to probably in my late teens, I was really struggling, trying to find solution for my own health and competing in bodybuilding, which some people could argue that it's a little bit of body dysmorphia, but
Look, anybody, I joke around about this. I've been working out since age 15. I've been very passionate about health and wellness and fitness since I was a child. And I joke around that anyone in the fitness industry, it's probably not a joke, anyone in the fitness industry has some form of body dysmorphia. If that is controlled, again, not to go into eating disorders, I think actually it is very valuable because I'm sure you agree, it keeps us on track and on point. If we're in the health and wellness industry, you got to look like we walk the walk. So whether it's standing on our head with a red light or doing.
And for me, competing, gave me the structure, changed my relationship with food, and actually made me so much better. That was my journey. So some people may think, oh, it wasn't healthy for you. Any sport to a certain extreme is not healthy. But for me, it gave me a different relationship with food. So I enjoyed the process and learned a lot. And I think that's why I'm always on the lookout for better ways. And obviously being a doctor, I love to have science-based tools as well, just the trends on TikTok.
Everyone now is talking about the importance of muscle as a tool for longevity. I personally have a goal of getting stronger as I get older. I don't want to say I'm obsessed with how much muscle I put on my body, but I'm concerned about it as well. I think everyone should. Also, from an empowerment standpoint, I think that is very helpful to develop that muscle memory and good habits for life, right?
Yeah. Muscle mass is measuring strength is one of the key marker that we have right now there's a huge correlation with longevity. Those hand grip, you can test yourself. For women, we should be at least 35 per hands, and you wouldn't want to have more than 10% difference from one side to the other. Another great test is the dead hang. Are you able to hang yourself for at least 30 seconds, a minute? Another easy one, are you able to get up from the ground without putting your hands down? Those are tests and VO2 max, and we can get into that later if you want, but those are tests that are inexpensive. Maybe the V2 max can be, but even then there's ones that you can do that will extrapolate your score. So those are all important things. And as you mentioned, muscle mass being one. And I see this, especially in women do not eat enough protein. And I'm a big fan of at least.
I think we're all guilty of that. The
Yeah.
eating, like I weigh about 146 pounds. I've had functional medicine doctors, of which I know you have a certificate in functional medicine as well. I've had them tell me to eat 100, 125 grams of protein a day. That's a lot of protein. That's a lot of food. And then you do intermittent fasting and it becomes much more challenging.
Yeah, it is such a good point you're bringing, because I myself too weigh, I guess, 140. So I aim for 1 gram per pound, and it's hard. And if you're doing fasting, it is hard. But to reassure you, I was just reading a paper not long ago. We used to say that your body didn't absorb more than 40 or 50 grams at a time. And I think now they're debunking that. So again, I'm not saying that you want to eat 100 at a time, but and I'm using a lot of protein shake. If I did not have that, and you could ask my patient in my adjustment room, I always have protein shake.
Are you doing plant-based protein or whey?
I do both. I'm an omnivore. I do well with both. I love salads and all of this. I alternate. So I'll do plant-based and I'll do whey protein. I don't do dairy per se, but I do whey, and my gut agrees with it.
You're fortunate, because I know a lot of people, myself included, have problems with whey protein. Anyway, we're going off on a tangent. Let's rewind and talk about epigenetics a little bit, because you're seeing clients on a daily basis. I'm seeing clients coming into my yoga studio, all different ages and weights and levels of fitness, quite frankly. Tell us about epigenetics, and then we can discuss how we can outwit our DNA and be healthy anyway.
Yeah. So let's start to what is genetics. And I think everybody knows that you can't change your genes, and that's from your mom and your dad. But epigenetic is the study of changes in gene expression that does not involve alternation of our gene. So it's our environment, that it is our experiences and our behavior. So I love this. And if I'm sure you're familiar with Dr. Bruce Lipton, he's
I was with him in 2020 presenting.
Oh, wow. He seems like such a heart center man. I'd love to have met him. That's for sure.
He's an amazing guy. We were in Rishikesh, India together in 2020, just as the COVID thing was coming on. And he had some very interesting things to say. I'll send you some videos under separate cover. But yeah, he's a master, and he really was the one who, I think, publicized and made popular epigenetics.
Oh, definitely. And epi means above, so above the gene. He always talks about the it's not a set number, but that 5% is genetic and probably 95% is epigenetic. And I say that to patients. I said, we should see this as exciting, because that means that if your lifestyle is good enough, you can turn off those genes. So to me, I live my life with the thought of, okay, I have the genes that I have. I got my genetic tested.
Let's talk about that for a second. I know that some people are not huge fans of getting their genetics tested. They're afraid that someone's going to capture them. Most recently, we had some people on from a gene testing company that said they can test for 9 different types of cancer, breast cancer being the most popular one. I did 23andMe years ago.
Mhm.
You're an advocate of first, I believe that we should all know our baselines, whether it's your body weight and levels of body fat, visceral fat, and all. Do you advocate for people getting their genetics tested?
Yes, but there's more to it. So I too did 23andMe way back because my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer and I wanted to know about the ApoE4. And at the time, that was almost the only thing that was available. But my point being is that there are now companies that guarantee your data.
Would you just share for our listeners what some of those companies, because I wouldn't mind to get retested, quite frankly. Would you recommend some brands?
Oh my goodness, you got me. There's many now. What also is available now is that, are you familiar with SNPs, single nucleotide polymorphism? So what SNPs are, I hate to say error in our code because I don't think we have error, but with SNPs, there are little modification in the nucleotide of our cells. And those SNPs I think are what is interesting, meaning, so if you have the MTHFR gene, which I have half of it from my mom, that means that my methylation pathways are not efficient.
I have the same thing.
Okay, so knowing this, then we can support. But on the flip side, this is a pulsing or cycling supplements. I was just again listening to another doctor saying that we should not be on methylation supplement every day. So now I take it 3 times a week.
I would also ask you, and again, we're getting off tangent. We apologize to the listeners, but this is all really good, valuable information. I had taken a great test from Cell Sciences, and I love their test so much. They're actually now a sponsor of the show. And they had the methylation test. But also, my acupuncturist, actually, who sent me to them originally, said, take a break with the supplements because you're not methylating half of them anyway. Try for a month, just getting all your supplements through an IV vitamin drip. I also inject myself with B vitamins and glutathione a couple of times a week. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on using IV or injections, intramuscular injections for vitamins versus taking oral supplements, especially if you, like 40% of the population, do not methylate your supplements properly?
I think it becomes a preference. I'll be honest, Beth, I tried the injection and I did not do well at all. I had a major bad reaction and I'm like, I'm not putting a needle into me ever again. I tried and it was a bad experience. So not to say that IVs are not good. I don't know if it was the nurse
I used to actually hate them because like my veins don't like things going in them. They roll away.
It wasn't that. It was worse than that. My arm ended up being this big. Like it was just a bad story. Exactly. So I think if people can do it, they can do well with it. I'd say IV drips. I have a friend who has a franchise in the States and that's what they do. I would support it. For sure, when you take supplement orally, the digestive enzyme in the body and the hydrochloric acids and all of that stuff, there's so many factors. But to go back to the genetic testing, what I like about there's many now that you can take your raw data from 23andMe or Ancestry, bring it in that platform. Pure Genomic is another one that I use, and they will tell you the SNPs that are important for detox pathway, for neurotransmitter breakdown, but they're only going to give you the ones that you can do something about it. And I like that because sure, we BRCA gene and ApoE4 genes and so forth, but I don't know about you, but I don't want to focus on the negative if there's not a lot that can be done about it, especially now. So I like that approach that it's giving you the ones that knowing my pathway, understanding the physiology behind it, then I can say, aha, I do not have this gene or I have an error in this one, then I can modify. But it's complicated for people and you need to prioritize the food, the exercise, the sleep. This is primordial before you start digging deeper into your genetic, but it can be very valuable, I believe.
So what we've heard so far is that even if your genetics say you're going to get something, you have 95% of an opportunity, which is huge, to not succumb to your genes, which is good news. And people really cannot use that as an excuse anymore. And I'm sure that genetic testing over the past 10 years has vastly improved. Anytime I go to a longevity conference, every other booth is some type of test. We've talked about epigenetics. I'd like to jump into the topic of sleep. It's something I've become super passionate about since we opened up our Be Yoga Fit studio in Fort Lauderdale, and I'm teaching early morning classes. I'm like now really focused on getting into bed by 9, 10 o'clock at night, which is not who I used to be as a person, and tracking my sleep, as we discussed before the show. Because I read your book and saw the mouth taping, I decided to do that. Let's talk a little bit about some sleep strategies for people. And
oh my goodness, I'm passionate about that. Again, I have this conversation all the time. Plus, for myself, my sleep has become my number one priority. And it sounds boring to say, but it has. I'm 55 now and gone through menopause and all of this, and then with the stress and so forth, and I really had to focus on my sleep. And I used to joke that I didn't want to go through menopause with any symptoms. And I remember saying that to some women. I said, oh, good luck with that, Nathalie. And I'm happy to report that it went pretty good. And I will say that it's not one thing, but paying really big attention to sleep.
We're going to tackle that on another show. And we're doing a webinar on September 17th on menopause and perimenopause. So I'm going to
recap. That's another conversation
about that topic, because let's face it, my friend who is a menopause expert went through menopause at 39. So I think any woman like 40 on up, this is a super important topic, because left to its own devices, your hormones can really wreak havoc.
Yeah. And the point is that we need to prepare, right? Because in our 40s, it's usually career, kids, and our adrenals there's no such thing, as they say, as adrenal fatigue. But to me, it's the adrenals that are not doing what they're supposed to do because you're taxing them.
I've got on my desk right now green tea.
Yeah.
Got some half-calf coffee that I made here.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll talk about caffeine.
The point being that we need to nurture our adrenals, and there's a point to this with the sleep. So when we wake up in the morning, our cortisol is high. This is what allows us to jump out of bed. As the day progresses, it goes down, and then we're able to go to sleep at night easily. And then melatonin is the complete reverse of the cortisol. So the importance of this here is to make sure that you manage your stress and your sleep so that your cortisol is peaking at the right time. This is our chronic stress hormone, and it can be measured, and it can be measured.
But it could be, like you said, it can be reversed, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So is it a saliva test that one can
It is a saliva test, and sometimes it's a dry blood spot as well. So
our listeners are interested in knowing if their cortisol levels are reversed, which is not helpful because it's really hard to get out of bed when that happens.
Or flat line, right? Yeah.
Is this a test that one can order?
Yeah, the company I use, if you want me to say, is ZRT. It's available through many doctors, and it's exactly ZRT.
Again, that is by prescription only, right?
You need to work with a functional medicine practitioner.
Do they also have telehealth if you were to go direct to the company?
Oh, I don't know that. Being in Canada, I'm not quite sure. Here, it's also available through
north of the border.
Yes.
Tell us about what I'm doing now, which is the mouth taping, because that hit me as being like, okay, your book is so easy to read, easy to follow. Everything's broken down. It's not too complicated for the average layperson to read. I picked it up. I read the thing on mouth taping. I was like, I have to start this again. Tell us about that, because that's something anybody can do.
Exactly.
Off of Amazon.
To me, I see sleep as something we need to start in the morning. So get outside, get sunlight into your eyes. I personally, it's summer now, so I go out and drink my decaf cup of coffee barefoot in my backyard and get 10 minutes at least of sun. No sunglasses, and you don't want to be staring at the sun.
Our friend Andrew Huberman says, and I've doing this for a little while, but it is challenging. He said, don't have caffeine for a
Yes.
full hour and a half.
Yeah, I do that. I delay caffeine intake, and it has to do with the adenosine receptor that caffeine latches onto. And the thought
You
is,
wake up, you go outside, you
yeah,
barefoot in the grass, which I do, but
yeah.
I'm having coffee now when I have caffeine, but I'm having coffee when I wake
So
up.
I do decaf, and honestly, like I don't even see the difference, to be honest. I think I just love the taste of coffee. I love the routine of what else. I put collagen, I put creatine in my coffee and MCT.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a question there because I just started collagen supplements about a week ago, and
Yeah.
one's 30 calories. And I understand from everything I've studied on intermittent fasting that over 10 calories breaks an intermittent fast. So if I put that collagen in my coffee, whether it's regular or decaf or in my black tea,
Yeah.
am I breaking my intermittent fast?
The only way to know, Beth, would be to have a glucose monitor and see. So I can't answer that question because for me, it does not break me out of fast. That's another thing that I've done for 30 days. I wear a blood glucose monitor so I can see the food. But
that's something that anyone can order one of these.
It's a little bit pricey, but to me, it's like, why wait? It's on your arm. It's 3 sets of 10 days. And I love the experience. I looked at when I'm in the sauna, what does it look like? When I'm in the cold plunge, what does it look like? When I eat this food before, if I eat this food in what order. So I want to do it again and just really take notes this time a little bit more on this. So getting back to sleep, we need a good routine in the morning to set up our circadian rhythm. And then at night, the routine to me is no electronics in the bedroom. So no cell phone, even on airplane mode, just, you don't need it. Just put it in the bathroom or whatever. And if you need an alarm clock, I have the good old ones that you don't crank, but it's battery operated. So my schedule allows me, and I'm an early riser, that I don't need to put an alarm, but the days that I do, then I make sure that I wake up on time. So no electronics, dark. I'm a big fan of, like you said, the mouth taping. If people are a little bit scared to put surgical tape because it can be a bit of a panicky feeling. I remember the first time I did it, I'm like, oh boy. But there's also a company called Myotape. It has a slit in the middle, so it allows you to breathe if you needed to, but it's designed in a way that it will keep your mouth closed. And then a mask, a sleep mask. I have a great sleep mask that I got on Amazon, and it doesn't have an elastic, so it's not uncomfortable. And earplugs, if I'm traveling, white noise is something that I use as well. And then before I go to bed, my 2 capsules of magnesium. I use different companies for different things.
I'm curious because there's a
I
lot
know.
of controversy about melatonin.
So I think melatonin can be helpful if someone is going through a bad bout, loss of a loved one or something, but I don't think it should be done all the time. It does have some really good property in high dosage for being an amazing antioxidant. For other purposes, I don't
give it to my
thing.
dog, actually. He's got anal gland cancer, and from what I understand from different natural doctors, that it's an anti-carcinogen.
Yeah, exactly.
So I give him 3
exactly.
milligrams every night, and if I really need to knock him out because he's got a lot of energy, I'll give him 6, and he's out like a light.
For me, and then another one that I take and I do really well is phosphatidylserine, which is to mop up the rest of the cortisol that might be a little bit elevated. And I do really well. Phosphatidylserine. I apologize.
Is that like, I used to take L-serine to sleep. Is that like that?
No, that's not that at all. It's more from a cortisol point of view. And I do take a cortisol support. One of the company that I like is called Design for Health, if you're familiar with them. Great companies. I fluctuate between the adrenotone, which is more herbal. So it's got ashwagandha, rhodiola. I fluctuate between that. And sometime if I'm going through a more stressful time, I'll do the adrenal complex, which is bovine extract as well. So with patients that are not responding to the herb and they're down the gutter when it comes to their cortisol, I'll switch them to an adrenal complex like that. So as you can see, I'm almost more about supporting your cortisol than knocking yourself out with the melatonin at night. So there's glycine and inositol that you can take as well as a sleep protocol. But I find myself the magnesium and the phosphatidylserine, that's what it is, really helps mop up that leftover of cortisol. Just to go back to the cortisol test, I just did mine not too long ago. In the evenings, it's dropping a little bit sooner than I want to. So this is the kind of information that if you know that, then you can adapt a little bit your supplementation, meaning that I'm taking now my adrenal support a little bit earlier in the morning. Little biohacks, and it's about how you feel, right? So you try something, see how it goes. And that's why I'm always a big fan of changing one thing at a time, so you know what you did, and then you can keep stacking on top of it, but you don't want to change 7 things because you won't really know what.
People are always asking me like what works. I'm like, I do so many different things. I have no idea
Yeah.
what works.
Yeah.
Let's just jump back. We're all over the place today. Sorry to our listeners. We're very excited about this topic of longevity. Just some quick benefits of taping your mouth shut.
It's just that we're not supposed to breathe through the mouth, plain and simple. And when we breathe through the nose, we can activate nitric oxide, which is an amazing molecule, especially the endothelium 1. We're probably slowing down our breath as well. And there's a lot breathwork wise. I don't know if you're familiar with Patrick McEwen, the Oxygen Advantage, which I've taken many of his classes. He's a huge proponent of mouth breathing, unless you're exercising and you really need to increase your nose breathing. That's so important. So,
and we do that in yoga too. We breathe in.
I bet I'm preaching to the choir here that you probably are even better than I at breath work, because
during the day, at night, all bets are off. Let's also talk about alcohol and caffeine, if you think these are helpful or harmful to longevity.
Okay.
And when it's too much, too much.
Exactly. Caffeine, I believe, is okay. I think there's a lot of research to back me up on this. But again, it's our toxic exposure. So is your coffee organic? Is your coffee moldy? Caffeine itself, I think, is a valuable molecule. But again, you don't want to be drinking 7 or 8 coffees. Delaying it will potentially stop 90 minutes after you wake up. You won't have the crash in the mid-afternoon. So that's a plus, because sometimes people will reach out to another coffee.
And when my mid-afternoon crash happens, I usually will have a half or a quarter of a modafinil.
Okay.
Some more caffeine.
That works for you. See, when my energy crashes, I'll do a choline supplement, something for my brain to work better if I need to concentrate. Again, we all have our tools here. So
let's talk about cognitive enhancers for a moment. It's something that I've been studying, researching, and taking a lot of for years.
Yeah.
Recently, I started taking methylene blue, although I've seen it at biohacking conferences for years. I had a friend whose teeth turned like blue, or her real teeth, but it turned me off of that. But then I went to a longevity conference a few months ago, and now the methylene blue is coming in pill form. My friends at Global Healing have it in liquid form. Tell us what you think about methylene blue as a cognitive enhancer, and what other cognitive enhancers you would recommend.
I have used also methylene blue. I think it's got, from a cellular point of view and helping at the mitochondrial level in terms of energy, I think can be very valuable. Again, would I recommend that as opposed to you're not sleeping, you're burning the candle at both ends? No, but those are all things that you can take. Now, I'm a big fan of supplements that have a multitude of things together. So to me, if I can take one supplement, and I know Design for Health has one called Brain Health, and it has many different components that will help with the brain. And I think, as I mentioned, my mom has passed away from Alzheimer, and my goodness, it was such a horrible way to see her go. So I'm putting big emphasis on my brain. Now we could talk about nootropics, and
I would love to talk about nootropics, and I would also like to hear, because you're seeing clients in real time and in real life, if you've been able to reverse anyone's cognitive decline before it gets too bad.
I wish I had more experience with it. I don't. If people listening have someone in their life, I would say Dr. Dale Bredesen probably has the most fantastic book on Alzheimer, and he has a protocol that helped reverse. So unfortunately for my mom's situation, it was past where we could have an impact on where she was. So I would just suggest to reader to look his protocol and dig deeper into that. So to me, the nootropic that I use are for decrease inflammation in my brain, are for better concentration. I use ketone in the afternoon as a substance to or a fuel to help me concentrate. So,
And are you on a keto? Oh, I want to get
no,
into
I'm
that.
not on a ketogenic diet. I use ketones, ketone salt or ketone ester. Ketone salt I'll take before my workout. I just find that towards the end of my workout where I would be, I'm getting winded here. It just gives me that extra fuel. And then, as I mentioned, the ketone ester, I'll do more for my cognitive function. If I know that I need to write and concentrate on something, I'm so much more productive in the morning that if I do have to write in the afternoon, I'm like, okay, I need to stack. So ketone esters and methylene blue have been very good for me. But I can't say that with patients per se that I've dug deep enough to say if it's making a difference or not.
The thing with cognitive decline is I think for a lot of people, it starts to happen. They're not really aware of it because it is a cognitive decline. And then at some point, perhaps it becomes too late. What are your thoughts about stacking various amino acids like phenylalanine, tyrosine, or niacin in terms of brain health?
Yeah, and creatine, I mentioned that I put in my coffee as a obviously muscle building, but also for cognition. Research is showing now that 5 grams of creatine daily, I put in my coffee, doesn't taste like anything, is great. I do take
pretty thick coffee you're drinking between the collagen and the creatine, huh?
It's lovely. I love it. It's lovely. Where was I going with this? Sorry, I lost my train of thought
Just
here.
talking about different cognitive enhancers, amino acids, and
Yes,
different.
amino acid. This is something I personally take as well. So there's several companies that I use. Again, you and I were discussing earlier that it is hard to get enough protein. So I will at least have 1, if not 2 amino acid drink. I'm not a big fan for myself of the branch chain amino acid per se. I prefer having the full gamut of the amino acid. And some of the formula that I use will be higher in some of them. So I haven't played very deep into testing more of this one, less of this one. But to me, it's like amino acids are the building blocks of protein. And if I can flood my body throughout the day because my job is very physical, then I know that I'm supporting my muscle.
As someone who's struggled with situational depression for pretty much my adult life, I have been researching different supplements that are natural for years as a way to combat that. And apparently, a lot of amino acids in tyrosine, phenylalanine are also mood enhancers.
Oh my goodness, they're the building blocks. To go to depression and anxiety and so forth, we just have to be careful when someone, and not with amino acid per se, but even with herbs, when people are on antidepressant or anti-anxiolytic, you have to be careful to not start playing with herbs like St. John's wort or something because they can interact. So that's when consulting a functional medicine practitioner or a naturopath is important to, if you want to wean yourself off of it and not suffer through taking.
Many times in my life, wean myself off of antidepressants, and it can be a very challenging road, microdosing. It's funny because the company that I buy my methylene blue from just sent out a warning today for men. And they said, don't take your methylene blue within 2 hours of taking a Viagra or a Cialis. For our listeners who are taking a bunch of different stuff like we are, make sure there's no contraindications and drug interactions, because don't be surprised that supplements are drugs too. Anything we put in our body, whether it's green tea, whether it's caffeine, alcohol, it is really all potentially going to change your brain and your biostate.
Yeah. I think it's important also to know that there's not a lot of research when it comes to longevity because we're basically stuck with my study. It's hard to study longevity other than looking at people in the blue zone and looking at what they're doing. If we want to dig a little bit more into the nutraceutical and sirtuin, mTOR, AMP2, those are all molecules or protein that are impacting longevity, but there's not a lot. NAD is another big one with NR and NMN. So those are all molecule or nutrient sensor. I toss them all in the same category and they're not exactly the same, but we don't have a lot of research to say NAD, if we do have more NAD, it's going to increase longevity. I was just listening to Huberman and Dr. Huberman and Dr. Attia actually write on that topic. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of research. Can it be detrimental? Probably
There's
not.
a lot of research now for all these drugs that people are shooting themselves up with to lose weight, the semaglutide, the other one. I joked with a friend of mine the other day. I said, probably in 10 years, they're going to come out that these supplements or substances, whatever you want to call them, have so many side effects that people don't know about because they haven't been studied for very long. And yet everybody seems to be on them, even if they have only 10 pounds to lose.
Yeah, weren't they sponsors of the Olympic? I don't know about you guys, but it was popping on the Canadian channel that brought to you by. If you want to talk about that drug.
We had Dr. Barry Sears talking about that a year now. The main point that I got from it was that people who are using these injectable drugs, when they stop taking them, they're going to gain the weight back. And when they gain it back, it's all going to come back in fat. And 40% of the weight that you lose is muscle mass. To me,
and that was my point, that if I have a patient that's on it, I say, hey, two things. You need to eat 0.8 gram of protein per pound, and you need strength training 3 or 4 times a day. It's almost like it should not be given to people if they don't sign on the dotted line that they will do that.
I don't know what the statistics are in Canada, but I know in the US that only about 15% of our population belongs to a health club. And then you have to ask, of that 15% of the population, how many people are actually going to the gym? I struggle to make it to the gym 4 times a week. It's challenging. Getting people to change those habits, I think, is a lot more challenging than having them advocate to inject.
And I think it becomes a societal thing. It's where this instant gratification, let's go now, it needs to happen now. And I think it will have its repercussion. There are some things that I work with people all day long, and I have even a poster, Beth, on my ceiling when people are lying down, and it says, healing takes time.
So I have a question for you. Are you working with a lot of clients that are obese?
Yes, but I would say, and again, don't quote me on the statistic, that we probably are a little bit lower in obesity in Canada than we are in the States. A lot of overweight people, a lot of deconditioned people that work at a computer all day. When they came up with that sentence, sitting isn't smoking, right? 5 years ago, I'm like, well, that's a little bit dramatic, but guess what? 5 years later, I'm like, yeah, no, it's pretty much clear that it is affecting. Now, my patients that are construction worker or retail, they're healthier than the ones that are sitting at a computer. It's awful what it's doing to us. It truly is.
Yeah, and then you layer on the average COVID weight gain, which was in the US 29 pounds. It becomes even more daunting for people. It's really hard to keep weight off one's body, even if you've been working out your whole life. There's so many additives in the foods and the environmental.
That's it. Yeah.
Sugars and everything. I don't eat any sugar at all. Maybe like once a month for PMS, I'll have a little honey in my tea, but I've completely cut sugar, except of course I do drink alcohol on occasion. That is sugar. Once you cut that sugar out, you don't really get, again, unless it's like hormonally related, you don't get the sugar cravings anymore.
And I didn't answer your question with the alcohol. So we talked about coffee. The alcohol, I try not to take it because, again, I have some SNPs, that a little error in my genetic code that I don't metabolize alcohol or detoxify alcohol great. So for me, I try to limit. And I think the latest study is saying 2 glasses of wine or 2 alcoholic beverage is what's suggested. Or
per day or
per week? Yeah, it came out not too long ago, and I know a lot of people were quite upset with it. But again, everybody's different. And I think male and female, way different. So if you're having detox,
Also body type. I
yeah,
have a friend who's extremely muscular, not particularly tall, who can really handle the 3 alcoholic beverages, where if I have, a sip of one, I'm feeling it
yeah.
already.
Yeah, so there's definitely influence on that. And to go back to our foods, it's the toxic load. I was seeing something on social. It was saying it's not the gluten, it's a glyphosate. And it is
Yes.
true. Sad.
My favorite gluten-free pasta came up tested full of glyphosate. It's a chickpea pasta, and I was actually going to invest in their company about 8 years ago. I'm glad that I didn't. But that's when I'm gluten-free, and when I buy a gluten-free product, I'm assuming
Yeah,
incorrectly now that there
yeah,
is no glyphosate
yeah.
sprayed on it.
So when we're buying internationally, just reading an article on that not too long ago, is the standard of different countries are different. So we're really maybe taking a chance that the standards of that country is, it says organic, but it's not. So it's tricky. I know it's very
Yeah, and
tricky.
if you're going to say, okay, I'm going to switch to rice as my carb, then you have to make sure that your rice is organic and natural, because rice is full of arsenic.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it seems like everywhere we turn is a challenging direction.
Yes, but I think we've made it more complicated to try to have those processed foods. So I personally try, and I'm not perfect, and I hate cooking. So I'm not gonna lie, I do not like cooking, and I eat for fuel. I will enjoy a nice meal, but to me, food is fuel. So if we try to keep it simple, if you're not vegetarian, with salmon, beef, some chicken, and you make sure that it's grass-fed, it's organic, it's from your local farmer, and then the vegetables, and then the fruits, you can keep it simple with those kind of categories. It's when we start adding things that are more processed that it becomes more complicated. I always say my grandparents had a farm. She probably opened the door and went to kill that cow and just pick up the eggs from the chicken, and the garden was producing and canning, which, being up north, is not always easy for us to eat in season. You're at least in Florida and you have more
No,
than
but I
we
will
do.
say I've been to several farmers markets in Canada, and especially in the West Coast. You guys have awesome produce there.
I know. Yeah, there are ways, is what I'm saying, but it's complicated. And as consumer, if we don't put our foot down with the government agency and agriculture and so forth, that's like, okay, enough is enough. We don't want to lose control of the quality of our food. I think there's a lot of things we can do to wake people up, that we don't want to go down that
And
road.
with YouTube University now and podcasts like Make America Healthy, really people, they have no excuse for not being educated. I just think that there are a lot of people who don't want to be educated.
Yeah.
As we move towards the close of the show, I can't believe how quickly it's gone. There's so much to discuss. Just give our listeners some fast fact tips to hack their health and increase their health span, which is different than life.
Nutrition, nutrient dense food, stay away from food that are inflammatory. Exercise, leverage strength training, having a bigger or a more optimal muscle mass, you'll metabolize glucose more efficiently. The sleep recover. I'm a big fan of red light therapy. And if you could see my biohacking corner there.
I do a headstand with the red light in my face. It's like a 2
Ooh,
special.
that's great. So I have a panel, I have a BioFlex machine at the office. I use a sauna, I use infrared and near infrared. I just love red light. To me, it's such a great tool. And then just cold plunging is another big one. So I think we can look at biohacking with the free ones that you can do that won't cost you anything. And then if the budget is there, then you can start layering different things. I have a PEMF machine, pulse electromagnetic bed, at the clinic that I use. There's a lot of things that we can have fun with and try.
And tell us the name of your book again and where our listeners can.
I'll actually do a
Yes,
quick
please.
view here. So it's SmartCut, Hack Your Healthspan, cutting edge protocol for better energy and performance. Because at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want more energy so we can be more productive in our lives, with our family, with our work, with our passion project, with what makes us happy.
Great. Thank you. Dr. Beauchamp, tell our listeners where they can find you.
Many places, but I guess my website is my name, so .com. My name is Nathalie is with an H, and Beauchamp is BEAUCHAMP. But if you just Google the name of the book. I come up in many places.
Great. It was a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for all the information. We'll definitely stay in touch. We'd like to thank the sponsors of this show. And speaking of testing, our premier sponsor, Previmedica, offers innovative testing for food sensitivities, micronutrient deficiencies, yes, methylation, that's important as we discussed today. And they also offer nutritional lifestyle consultations. These tests are super effective. I've taken a number of them, food sensitivity tests, methylation tests. It's important to know what your baselines are and what might be inflaming your gut, even if you think it's a healthy food. Again, I can't say enough about these tests. And if you would like to save 15% at discount at the checkout, discount code YogaFit at previmedica.com. You can also email them or you can call them at 855-773-8463. Get tested. It's not expensive. You'll get a discount. It's totally worth it. We'd also like to thank our title sponsor, YogaFit Training Systems Worldwide, the leader in yoga, mind, body, fitness education. YogaFit is having a conference in Orlando, Florida, September 4th through the 8th, featuring several innovative programs, yoga for healthcare, yoga for PTSD and trauma, yoga for your back, yoga for golf and tennis, new program we're having there. You can save 15% at discount at YogaFit at the checkout, yogafit.com. The code is MAH24. YogaFit has online and live trainings as well as corporate wellness and yoga for healthcare providers. Again, this show has been on longevity, and we've covered so many topics. If you enjoyed the show and you would like to share it with others, we appreciate you doing that. Until next time, stay healthy, stay happy, and let's make North America healthy. Let's make the world healthy, everyone. Namaste. Thank you.